All right, welcome to Repair Shop Reckoning, the Race to Zero. Today, I'm kind of excited to have this guy here, Travis Smith. He's been with us as our financial advisor at both companies, manages all the guys' retirement, my retirement, and everything, investments. He's been our guy for 9 years, and before him, we had a guy named Mike Thompson who was our guy for 21 years. So altogether, we've been with your company for 30 years, and you guys have done very well by us. So I think we should start out today with we're going to talk about, we talk a lot about financial stuff on this podcast and what shop owners should be doing for their people, how they should be running their business to be. One of my big things is be profitable so you could afford to do things for your people, right? Yeah. We have the big debate on pay plans, the flat rates, the commissions, all that. But the one thing that people really don't talk about is retirement. The day you walk out of your job, okay, what happens then? Social Security? Social Security is not going to do anything for you. So I say we start out, let's go ahead and start out like very elementary and break this down by the generations and savings and growth and stuff like that. And let's talk about all that. And I see you got some slides and stuff like that. So let's get started, Travis.
Yep. Is this, you hear me good? Everything's good? Okay,
oh, yeah.
Cool. So I've never done one of these before. So the one thing, so if you look at money by generations, obviously compound interest, I mean, we all know, a lot of people say it's, the eighth wonder of the world or whatever. I've heard that my whole career since I was 19. The one thing people forget is if you look at where, let's just say the hot topic is how much money baby boomers have, right? Which is people born 1945, 1965. Okay. Well, you got to go back 20 to 40 years and see what laid the foundation for that wealth. So what laid the foundation for that wealth, we're going to start in 1928, 1929 stock market crash.
Yep.
Things are at a bargain basement, right? All of a sudden, global war. All the baby boomers' dads packed up, went overseas. Not only did we fight World War II, we also fought the Korean War. So the baby boomers are a 20-year generation where there was 1 million kids born every year. Companies like Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, all these companies' whole foundation was based on that one generation. Disposable diapers, Gerber baby food, talcum powder. Now I guess they use cornstarch and zinc because I got 2 little kids, because talcum powder, I guess, is not the best thing. But that's kind of what started laying the foundation. So if you look, when their parents came home from war, they had their script money or their wealth from being in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, whatever else. They started businesses. They started working. But what happened was you got to go back to when the stock market and everything crashed. Look at how cheap things were at that time, right? Because we were laying the foundation to basically become the world superpower as America. So when you look back at this and you look at what's happened, a beautiful example of this is Warren Buffett. World War II happens. The guys come home. Everybody wants a car. American auto industry takes off. Everybody wants a house. You got a whole housing industry take off. You go back to even Eisenhower and Kennedy when they got in office, huge amounts of roads and everything started getting built. We had this whole revolution in the country. Warren Buffett sat back, kind of like how Bill Gates did with the personal computer, or even on the other side of that, kind of like how we talked before the podcast about Elon Musk with data. I mean, think about it. All his businesses relate back to data. He got into the insurance industry, right? Every car, every home had to have insurance. By the mid-50s, America was saturated with insurance companies. So he's sitting back thinking, okay, I'm the richest man in the world now. I made all this money off of what's happened. Stock market's starting to roar under Eisenhower. There's this whole thing about the 50s that people forget. The country wanted peace and wealth. So we had a whole foundation that Eisenhower helped lead on, and Kennedy kept going on, and then we can keep going down the road about that. But when the boomers entered the economy in about 1980, that's when the average boomer was at age where they were getting into the economy. They had their jobs and everything like that. But you had the whole foundation of the economy already set up and rolling. So they went from being a generation of Gerber baby food, Pampers diapers, all that, to now being a generation of we want a house, we want a car, we want all the stuff that our parents had. But also at that time, the thing that happened with the boomers were they were the first ones that had 401ks, IRAs, not just a defined benefit pension, not just CDs and savings at the bank, none of that. And the reason I brought up Buffett is, guy's 90 years old, something like that right now. his kids are boomers. When Buffett passes away, where do you think a lot of that wealth is going?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So the richest generation on earth in American history was actually the silent generation, Buffett's generation and older. People that fought World War II, came home, and had the boomers. That was known as the wealthiest generation. I don't know if you probably would see this with your grandparents, but I mean, my grandpa came back from Korea, built the house in 55, and my uncle ended up buying the house today. You know, they paid it off in 5-10 years. You know, when they had cars, they paid everything for cash, right? So that generation just had a huge amount of assets and wealth that they accumulated, and then that money goes down to their kids, which are the boomers. But boomers also had the benefit of all the investment and savings plans. So, I mean, people could do a quick Google search and say, you know, Fidelity 401k millionaire, because they're probably the biggest provider of 401ks in the market right now. Or you can even do like a Schwab 401k millionaire, and you can see how many people are 401k millionaires. It's an astronomical percentage. And I would fall kind of on the breaking point of Gen X millennial. I probably act more Gen X, but they probably classify me as a millennial. You're definitely Gen X. We're not far behind the boomers, because think about what's happened in our career. We have people older than us. They wanted to retire. Me and you have both accumulated and bought a business before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You get the business paid for. Now you got some wealth, right? But we also had this thing called the financial crisis in 07 that started in 07, really hit us in 08, early 09. Dow Jones was 6,000. Boomers were in the peak of their earning years.
Yeah, I remember that. They lost a lot of money.
They lost a lot of money, but they were making $100,000 a year. If they were saving 10, 15%, buying the Dow at 6,000, in a lot of ways, they've almost had a tenfold increase off the bottom just in basic investments, not including the fact that they inherited wealth.
Yeah.
So if you look at what's happened, I'll say this: if you were a strong-willed young kid and you were out of high school and college and working back in 08, 09, and you kept working that whole time, you probably have enough wealth that when you're around your friends, you keep your mouth shut and lie. Because your friends that are your age, that are 38 to 45, probably don't have what you have.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, when you look at Gen X, you guys were, I mean, you were just getting into a stage in life too, where the economy tanked, but there was work that could be done. And as long as you were working and still able to save in some way, shape, or form, I mean, that revolution's been unreal. And then even if you look at generationally, let's talk about a classic Gen Xer, would be Elon Musk. I mean, you look at what happened to him, and even in your age group, the .com bubble burst. People were able to buy cheap.
Remember the Cisco's and all that? They
man.
realized they had no assets.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of .com companies, assets. I mean, if you look back at what really, like during the .com bubble that burst, I mean, you had, let's call it a $14,000, $15,000 NASDAQ. That bubble burst. Then you basically got back to even by 07, 08, and the bubble burst again. And it took to 2013, 2014 for people to get back to even. So you had a 15-year gap where markets and even the economy in general just was not good. Well, then now all of a sudden come, I guess if you went to the bottom of the market, we've almost been in a 15-year cycle here where it's been pretty much up. I mean, we've had 20, 30% pullbacks, whether it's COVID earlier in the year with the tariffs, 2017 with the tariffs, at the end of 2018,
Oh, this.
Is that you? Is that your AI Gronk coming?
Yeah, Jen.
Yeah, she heard what I was saying, and she figured out that I was coming to the end of that cycle. That's too good. Yeah. That's spooky good, right?
Isn't it?
Yeah, that was a good one.
So
if you go back, not to get too long-winded, and you look at the effect of wealth, I like to tell everybody wealth is kind of selfish in a way. If you have $10,000 and you make 20%, you made $2,000. If you had $1 million and you made 20%, you made $200,000. someone's grandpa and someone's grandson can make the same exact amount of money, but grandpa showed he had a lot more. And that's the effect of that compound interest that everybody kind of really forgets about. That's why it does look like boomers abnormally have a lot of wealth. But if you look at the generational charts and go back to the 90s, the boomers' parents had probably 70–80% of the wealth.
Yeah, yeah. One thing we didn't touch on 100% was a silent generation. Them people that they were coming off the Great Depression.
Yeah.
That's when them people would save everything and bury it. Okay, because
Yeah.
they realized, okay, we have no money. Here comes the Great Depression. Now we can't even afford to eat. So that's where they started saving, and then
Yeah.
that's where a lot of these tendencies come from. And
Well, and
yeah.
a lot of that I kind of think is not to cut you off. Sorry, I think that's somewhat hereditary, especially with the older boomers. Like if I go see a customer 75 years old, some of them $1 million or $2 million, and they're clipping coupons because they watched their mom do it, they watched their grandma do it, they watched their great grandma do it. So hey, Amazon Prime days, they're just as smart as we are. They know how to use a smartphone. They're looking at, okay, what has Amazon got on clearance, right?
Right.
Like I can't tell you how many customers of mine in their 70s that will say, hey, on Amazon Prime, you got kids. You ever think about buying your kids toys? It's Prime days. I'm like, well, okay, Sybil, thank you.
I started investing in I think probably 1998 is when we started at the shop, our retirement, and all my guys, we do the match. We'll get into that later and stuff like that, because I want other shop owners to realize that not only there's a little bit of a tax savings for the shop owners, but you're helping your people.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a benefit to everybody. So at the end of the day, when you walk out the door, your employees walk out the door after spending 30 years with you, they could actually live.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Social Security. Okay, so I don't ever. I'm a mechanic. I do very well. I make $120,000–$130,000 a year. I don't really save a lot of money because Social Security. I've been paying into Social Security. How much am I going to? What's the average guy get on Social Security?
The ones that have worked for 30, 40 plus years, they're getting over $3,000 now. The ones now.
Okay,
but if you're making $120 a year, that's let's just call it $10,000 a month. After you pay taxes, insurance, and everything like that, you're probably in 401k, simple IRA deposit, stuff like that. Let's say they're bringing home $6,500 to $7,000. I usually try to tell people if you're making $100,000 a year, times that by 0.67, and that's roughly
40.
what you're gonna about 33 to 37% of your check is going to the IRS, healthcare, 401k, stuff like that. It's just a rule of thumb. I'm not biggest fan in the world of rule of thumbs, but sometimes when I'm talking to people, I got to use them to kind of get my head around what they got going on. But if you look at Social Security, I mean, you look at the numbers. If someone's making $7,000 clear now, but they're going to get $3,000 when they retire, you're looking at maybe Social Security replaces maybe 35 to 45% of their income on average, and that's. I mean, if you have everything paid for, that's one thing. But I think people forget to. Like I had a neighbor the other day tell me, my wife and I bought a house, sold the house, bought a house, moved our equity into our house. So they have a small mortgage. Let's just say they have a $100,000 mortgage, but they did it back during COVID when interest rates were cheap. He told me the other day, Travis, my property tax in Holly, Michigan is more than my monthly mortgage because the house is inflated and they push stuff up and then they pass millages. So some of the questions you got to ask yourself when you retire too is, what is your fixed bills? Because you might have your Social Security between heat, electric, maybe some food, and you probably don't want to be eating hamburger helper when you're 70. High blood pressure, right? You probably have that at that age.
right.
But that's a joke. But by the time you pay just your general bills, your money's gone. You got nothing.
And here comes your $1,000 deductible on a car because a deer ran out in front and hit. What do you do?
Yeah.
That's what most people don't understand. I mean, this is such an important topic to make these younger guys. Lincoln, my son Lincoln,
Yeah.
he's investing.
Lincoln's a good dude.
He just freaking sent me a thing about $3,000 worth of Tesla stock today.
Yeah, Lincoln's something different, man. He's a good kid. That's definitely a Gen Zer. It's funny. In my line of work, I've noticed millennials act just like their parents, the boomers. But what would be our grandparents, the silent generation, we probably act more like our grandparents. But for some reason, Gen Z acts like their parents, Gen X.
You know, I told the story.
I don't know if that's ever really happened before, but it's like, you know, a lot of people say, oh, you know, my dad was kind of hard on me. Me and him got a better relationship later on, but my grandpa and I were like this. Like I've heard a lot of guys say that before. So it's kind of funny that you brought that part of the conversation up.
Well, I bring up this story in one of my podcasts where here is December,
Yeah.
and me and Marilyn were terrible with money, and we had no money for Christmas. Our American Expresses were freaking due. We had no money, and I'm like, hey, I can't pay the bills. American Expresses are due. Congratulations, we fucking suck. And that's when Dave Ramsey was just starting to get popular, getting into the churches and stuff like that. So I looked him up and I signed up for him for money we didn't have. And we started doing the Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover, went to the class at the church and everything. And that changed everything. For the next 2 years, we sold everything that wasn't nailed down. We paid, we did the snowball.
Snowball effect, yeah.
Yeah, and we became debt free except for our house. And I will tell you what, that changed everything. And I talk about these guys' pay structures that are on flat rate and stuff like that. The guys that are on flat rate that do sometimes 50 or 60 hours a week, then the next week they do 30, it doesn't matter to them because they say they have a wife that's a nurse or whatever, makes a good amount of money. These guys know how to manage their money. So having a down week does not kill them. It's the guys that have the motorcycles, the fast cars, all this shit that are broken, do not save a dime. That's great while you're maybe in your 20s, but you need to really start thinking about it when you get up there in the higher 20s to start investing, especially take advantage of your company matched pension. Why would you not take advantage of somebody giving you free money?
Well, it's funny to go back a little bit because we talked about like the different generations, but you also got to think about your life on a time gap. So I tell everybody from like 17 to maybe 33, you got to think about kind of almost how selfish you want to be. And it sounds very misleading on this conversation. And this might confuse some people so they can go back and rewind. But you graduate high school 17, 18 years old, right? And you had the Friday night lights and the football, or if you're a girl, you had the volleyball, you had all these friends, you had everything. You step out the door. Maybe some of your mechanics, it was over. They're in the shop. So now they're trading in their fun time for work time. But they also need to figure out where is it they want to take that career to. So if it was a young man maybe like you or me that was working 60, 70 hours a week from 19 to 27 trying to get the foundation of their life set up, you traded in some of that selfish time trying to build a career and a life, but you missed out on partying, maybe girlfriends, dates, family birthdays, getting married young, whatever, right? And I tell everybody the life of your employee under the age of 33 is kind of similar to the life of a business owner. When you take over a business, whether you're buying it or building it, you got to be very selfish with your time. You and your time kind of comes first. And there's actually a UFC fighter I really like named Chael Sonnen. And him and his wife did a podcast once. And his wife said the hardest thing about marrying him is he came from a household where his dad was like, work first, and then everything else will be took care of. Like we'll be able, if we make work a priority, life is easy. But you almost have to have that selfish time where you get your foundation and life set up. And then, it's kind of like we'll get into it here when we start talking about the different slides. The majority of the money you put in your investments, the majority of the growth up until almost $200,000 is going to come out of your check, what you're saving. So if you're saving 10 grand a year, you got 100 grand. If you put in 10 grand, you made your account went up $10,000. It's 10%, right? So if you had $1 million, you put in 10 grand. I mean, you're not going to notice it, but if the market goes up 10%, right, you notice that $100,000. So I've tried to tell the younger people, if I can get a hold of them young enough, it's okay to have that selfish moment where you got to tell your mom and dad, I can't come to a Saturday barbecue, or because I'm setting up my life. You can't be everything to everybody. There's only so much time in the day. Now, as a business owner, once the business is set up, it's running, it's stable, you have guys that have been with you for 10, 20, 30 years. So you're sitting there scratching your head thinking, oh man, I know this guy's wife. I know this guy's kids. I know this guy's this. I know this guy's that. You pull them to the side and you say, hey, you got to get a hold of Travis, or you got to get a hold of whoever our guy is, because I don't want to be selfish. I want to give you some money. So it's kind of a transition. I kind of noticed in this kind of maybe a little bit of my life is like from like that 19 to 30. I spend a lot of time working and doing everything. And then, you get to know your clients well and stuff like that. You start building your business and things get a little easier sometime around 30, 35. And I kind of, most guys have told me from like 35 to 60, the stress is just the stress. You're just used to it. It just takes you a while to get used to it.
That's where alcoholics are born.
Yeah, I think alcoholics are born in that 20s, man. I think that's where it comes from because you got a million things going through your mind. And would you want to go through that time period again? Probably not.
Well,
you might want that energy level, but you probably don't want to go through it.
Before you're a really good speaker, so
I don't know. You got to cut me off every once in a while. I like it going good.
Yeah, so I want to back up. The thing is, you're 100% right, and I'm going to tell everybody a story. I used to go. My kids were in baseball. Bo and Cooper were in baseball a lot, travel ball on the weekends. So we would always go to the travel tournaments. Yeah. And I remember I had a BlackBerry. And we had just started really growing Garrett Auto and Truck. Yeah. And I remember getting emails. I was one of the first people in our industry around us that had emails, and people would do a contact sheet through the website. It would come to my BlackBerry, and I would answer them. Yeah. And I remember a guy that owned a gym. He's like, "You're answering emails on a Saturday?" You know what my answer was back to him? We're growing a business, and that's my paycheck calling. When that thing vibrates, that's money. Yeah. So yes, I answer it. He's like, "Yeah, I don't do that." Guess where I am today with a thriving business? That guy went out of business 2 years after that and screwed everybody in town. Yeah. Okay.
Or like when you called me at 9 o'clock and said, "Hey, I want you to be on my podcast," and I went out on the back porch.
Yeah, because I had questions about the retirement program. I got to start thinking about it, and a lot of people on the internet or on the social media say I'm full of shit for a lot of things I say. Like, they don't believe that I gave two of my key guys 10% of my companies. They just do not believe that. They don't believe that I push my guys right when the 60-day mark hits, the year mark, 60 is for the injury. Guess who shows up? Travis. You have an appointment with Travis coming in, and you're going to set up a retirement program. Well, I really can't afford it. You can afford something. You're going to meet with Travis. You're going to thank me someday. Like I have Jody, who's a young kid who has no guidance. You're going to meet with him after a year. Mm-hmm. He's going to start investing. I don't give a shit if it's $20 a week. That's what he's going to do. And I tell him, you got to do this. You have to do this. Nobody in your life has told you, have given you any good advice. I'm here to tell you, I care. It's going to cost me money too. Yeah. But I want you to freaking have something when you retire. I do not want to walk over a pile of dead bodies or broken bodies that I broke to make money. I'm the rich guy that sells his business. Go, by the way, meet the new owner. Thank you very much for your service, and walk away. How much does that happen nowadays?
Not much. But the one thing I will say about your business too, and a lot of other people's business, as a financial advisor, I love having clients like you because, man, in my book of business, there's probably 15 guys because most of them have kept their accounts after they left here. So you had a lot of guys that worked here for 3-4 years. Then they transition out and they go do like medical device mechanic, or they go be a mechanic in like I think the one guy went to Kroger and he does like systems maintenance there or whatever. Yep. Right. So the skills they got here transferred, but they still had the money. I mean, you get someone who works a place like this 2, 3, 4 years, they save something, and 5 years after they leave. I mean, look at the group of young guys that were in here when I first started working with you. I mean, there was probably 8 guys here. Yeah. I mean, they were all younger and stuff, but all of them have accounts with me. And I mean, the one guy, I think he put in the max for like 2 years. He has like $40,000 in the account, and he only put in for 2 years. Yeah, back in 16, 17, 18, they probably weren't making what they're making now. So you think about that. I mean, $40,000 to a 35-year-old is still life-changing money.
Yeah, and the thing is with me, a lot of these guys I'm still friends with. Like you told me, it's like all these guys really still like you. They all speak highly of you. Like they moved on for different reasons. There's a few of them that probably got butt hurt and quit, whatever. But for the most of them guys, I still talk to most of them. I had a guy reach out to me that I grew up with in the business today on TikTok. He said, "Oh my God, I didn't recognize you until I seen the Garrett shirt. How are you?" His name was Eric, and he worked with me back in '98. He was one of my techs. I mean, and I said, "Yeah, I know who you are, and I've been keeping tabs on you. Moved to Florida. You quit the shop you're working at. You and your girlfriend or wife moved to Florida." He's like, "Oh my God, whatever." But I just think that more of these shop owners, if they would run their shops more profitable, they'd be able to do retirement programs and help people for the long term.
Well, some of it too is, if you look at it as a business owner, if you do want to sell the business. Let's say I think you got 2 locations, let's say. So let's say you got a primary and a secondary in both locations. So you want to make sure those guys stay, or you want to kind of get one encouraged to maybe say, hey, what's the backup plan if something happens to you?
Jason at Garrett's.
Jason,
Yep.
yeah, okay.
Yep.
So at that standpoint, then it's kind of like, okay, well, let's start discussing a deal. But if you got a 40-year-old guy that's been with you for 20 years, and let's say he has $100, $200, $300, $400, $500,000 in a simple IRA, when he goes to the Small Business Administration and applies for a loan to possibly buy out part of your business, or when he comes to you and says, I want to buy it, look, I have some assets, it makes that whole deal a lot better. It's kind of like I like to tell people, you look down at a hurricane and it's spinning around in a circle. I've used this analogy with customers before. This is why we need different kind of accounts. Like Waddell & Reed was a huge Dave Ramsey company. A lot of the guys there had it. So like Dave Ramsey had his 4 mutual fund approach, right? Because the economy is kind of spinning around and you don't all want all your assets in one asset class. Because mutual funds or investment funds that are all Act 40, they're diversified. They got multiple stocks and stuff in them, but they're not representing, you want different representation of the economy. You might want a tech one. You might want like a Procter and Gamble type of, like grandpa fund. You might want, I probably wouldn't buy an international fund, but you might want a fund that has some both stocks and bonds and stuff in it and stuff like that. So if you look at the flow of that economy, I like to tell everybody, look at your business, the money comes back to you. Like, how many repeat customers do you have?
Quite a bit.
Yeah. So if a guy comes in and is just like, hey, man, I need an oil change. My wife bought me some things I need to put on the bottom of my truck, and then I think I need tie rods. Okay, let's say it's just a lot of little work, so you get it done in a day. It's like, well, that wasn't the most profitable thing. But then when his transmission goes out and he wants to get a brand new transmission put in it or something like that, he's like, Kevin was a good dude. And it's kind of like that money comes back to you. It's the same way with your employees, because the biggest problem I see right now economically, and we'll go back to the baby boomers, a lot of them own businesses and they can't get out. And it's starting to happen with Gen X. I think Gen X is kind of blinking their eyes a little faster at it because, one, they kind of, like you got in like the 90s and the dot-com bubble burst, so they were investing at a downturn. Market got back to even. Financial crisis busted. They invested at a downturn, and then they've had this just generational wealth move in the economy. Well, now they're looking at it like, well, man, I don't want to be in the same situation as my mentor that owns this shop, or my buddy that owns this business, or the guy at the bowling alley that owns this business. I have no way out. So now, if you think about it, if you don't have guys that know your business and have some wealth, how do you get out? And one of your biggest assets as a business owner is your business, if you can sell it.
Yeah, and I've seen over the years these guys that have a key guy they really didn't mentor very well, and they say, "Oh, I'm going to self-finance this whole business," and they freaking end up having to go back after a couple of years because they run the whole thing into the ground.
I can see that. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they get the phone call, "Hey, taxes aren't paid, da 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 da." Then this guy has to come back and renege. And by the time I see one, the guy did it. It was a rental shop. The guy sold all the equipment, so he came back to a broke shop, a broke rental place with no rental equipment that was all sold.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
The thing I see right now is the biggest one I see right now with boomers is guys who are like customers are like dentists, chiropractors, family practice. Because you got to have a very expensive license. And my uncle is 75, and he just retired as a dentist. But the funniest thing about it is like he said, you're trying to sell an asset to someone who's so far indebted they can't get a loan. Right? Because it's how the economy's changed. Like when my uncle went through dental school, I think he became a dentist in the 70s for, God, if I said $40,000, he might slap me upside the back of the head and say it was 25, because college just didn't cost that much back then. Well, now, I mean, you look at a dentist today, I mean, shoot, you're looking at $400,000 or $500,000 to be a dentist.
And here's the other thing. They teach you how to drill teeth. They don't know how to teach you how to run a business. And I have an example.
And
hang on. I have an example about that I have a lady that I know that bought a dental business. She's a dentist. She's pretty good. And I went in there to get my teeth cleaned. I'm like, She blew out the wall and put 4 more optometries in there and put a lab in there and all that. Now all of a sudden I hear they're having all kinds of problems. The minute I looked as a business owner, I looked at that, knocking down the wall and added 4 optometries and 4 more people to feed and all that stuff.
$100,000 a chair.
Oh boy, I thought to myself, she's struggling right away. And guess what? Instead of maximizing everything and getting the profits so high, building a bunch of wealth, everybody thinks more employees is better.
No.
It's not the case.
No. Well, it's like we talked about being selfish with your time when you're young. You might have to put in those 80, 90-hour weeks before you can hire somebody. And then basically what you're doing as a business owner by hiring people is you're saying, I want some of my time back, but I still want to grow the business. So as long as that employee can generate their check plus, you don't mind bringing it on, but you had to set, I mean, I hate to say it, you had to pour the foundation for your house or you had to pour the foundation for your basement. It's the same concept. Question comes down to, it's like at the end of the day, you know, a lot of people want to sell their house. So you still, even though you poured the foundation for the business, you got to be able to get out of it too. And that's different. I mean, you could probably have a podcast on that by itself.
Yeah, a lot of these guys don't realize, and this is where I talk about all the time, you need to get processes and procedures in place in your business where you're not involved. So the investment group comes in and says, he pulls $500,000 out of this place. How much is here? Well, he's never here. He comes in once a week and looks over everything, pays payroll, pays the bills, and turns around and walks away. Then all of a sudden they say, okay, we're buying this business for cash flow. We take him out of there's $500,000 in cash flow instantly. So that makes the business more appealing. You know, if you're the crutch of the business because you cannot get out of your own way and stay out of your own policies, which you've seen obviously.
Yeah, I've struggled with that, and I've like figuring out like how to hire someone and stuff like that, like as an assistant. I think as a business owner, a lot of us we have a little control problem. We're like you know, and I think we're all either ADHD or Type A personality. I don't know which one it is.
No, I would agree with that. And I haven't been at Garrett's a little bit this week. I was there today and paid the bills and paid payroll, but I haven't been there since last Thursday. I think, and I've been here because we've just been so busy. I've been doing estimates and working on the AI stuff, so I've been here doing it. But it's kind of insane what's going on out there in the world. The AI is changing everything. You know that.
Yeah. Well, if you want, let's talk about AI for a minute. If you look at it, it was funny. I was listening to a podcast from American Funds Capital Group, and one of the fund managers was like, "Look, the last 6 years, it's been unbelievable. Like demand growth is minimum 80%." And there's been, and you look at just the other day, the guy from NVIDIA hand delivered like the smallest computer, like super like unit for like AI to Elon, because of Twitter and stuff. And it's just like not much bigger than your cell phone. And it's like, well, wait a second. And then there's another company out there that people forget, like the utility industry right now is one of the fastest growing industries because they were even talking about like they were going to shut down Palisades, the nuclear power plant on the west side of the state of Michigan. Over by Grand Rapids area. Well, now they're redoing it. My neighbor down the road, her dad actually works for consumers, and they're in there like upgrading it because they have such a demand for the electricity now with the AI. Well, it's funny now that you have you were talking about like what are our kids going to do before this podcast, like if AI starts taking all these jobs. Well, it's funny now there's a company out there that they're selling fuel cells to go next to the AI, data houses.
No shit.
Yeah, which, okay, a fuel cell isn't the best way to make power. No, you're still piping a gas pipeline into it, and, you have chemical reaction and creates electricity, whatever, goes into the thing. But if you think about it, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people. I mean, you look at the cost of life. I mean, my God, people's electric bills just because of AI are going through the roof. I mean, that's one of the biggest drivers on your electric bill because being a regulated utility, if they're going to build more, put in solar panels, build new powerhouses, whatever they do, well, they jack up the price of your bill to pay for it.
They just did. Yeah. They didn't talk about that. The delivery fee, they tripled it in Michigan.
They don't talk about it. Yeah.
I think everybody's bill. Well, I know Jim was telling me his bill went up like $160 a month.
Oh, Gray?
Yeah.
Here in yeah.
I'm like, holy shit. And ours did too. And I was just thinking it's because we run the air conditioning and the hot tub and all that shit. No, it went up.
No, it went up. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
It's funny. I was on the Tucker Carlson podcast. I was listening to him talk about, he did a hunting podcast in Open Maine. He's a huge hunter. And they have these little battery backups called Jackeries.
Oh, I seen them. The solid states?
The solid states.
Yep.
So my buddy and I, because he ended up buying hunting property right down the road from me, and he has his camper there. And I said it to him, like, he's an engineer. I'm like, hey, look into this. And at first he's like, oh, those suck. They're no good. Now all of a sudden, guess what? He went and bought one for his camper. So like during the summertime and stuff, when he's at his hunting property, he parked his camper there. Now he just plugged that in, air conditioner and all that. Like he said, with the solar panel, he can get 4 or 5 days.
Is that not insane?
Well, you think about how fast things are changing. And then even if you look at the solid state batteries, and I've looked into them, it's hard to get really good information on them. But you're almost wondering, because like, remember high school, you made a battery out of potato,
Yeah.
right? Like you're almost wondering, like, where is that going to go? Like, you start really looking at, like where technology, even from lithium ion or, first lead, then nickel, and then lithium, and then now solid state. It's like, where can they take that with research,
They're talking about the Teslas and stuff like that. When they get a solid state battery, they can go way triple the battery. They're talking, I think, double the battery or something like that. I mean, there's a perfect example of the technology in a Tesla.
Yeah.
I was an absolute hater. Now I'm freaking the poster boy, freaking over there, rah rah rah, go Elon. Because
there's your Cybertruck out in the driveway.
Yeah, and they're just it's amazing the technology and how easy it is to deal with.
Yeah.
And no maintenance, washer fluid and tires.
Really?
Yeah, that's it. They say
there's no grease fittings.
no. They
nothing
say
like
I think in 5 years I need to change the brake fluid, and I need to change a filter or some shit. I mean, there's no maintenance.
Now, I do got a question for you on that. Since you work on all these vehicles, are they using through the same OEM, different tiers? Are they all getting the same parts from the same suppliers when it comes to like brakes and calipers and rotors and all that?
Yeah, I know that my neighbor, he works at a company that he says they supply Ford, GM, and Tesla parts. But I will tell you, a deer ran out in front of me the other day, and I hit a deer. It hit the front of my Cybertruck. It broke the bumper and some shit. I put the VIN number in TeslaParts.com. They pulled up the diagrams. I picked the parts. I put them in my cart. I put my credit card. They came here Monday. I ordered all the parts. All the parts are here sitting in my driveway right now. Tell me that's not freaking insane. When I get Ford parts and shit, we had did you see the CEO on the, today I woke up to 6,000. This is not a parts problem. Everything's on freaking back order for GM and Chrysler. If it's not, let's talk about the 6.2s that are blowing up and people's Yukons and their trucks are sitting in the dealerships for a year.
Well, look at the problems I have with that. I mean, it took them 4 months to get parts to fix it after a fender bender. And then a year ago, I was in Garrett Auto doing a 401k for, I think the guy's your neighbor right down the road. He works for you now, younger guy.
Yeah.
And I was telling you, I'm like, yeah, I said, I opened up my oil lid and I said, man, there's this blow by coming by. And it was funny. I told the guy at Chrysler, I said, look, I have a compression checker. I checked the cylinders. Cylinder 3 and 5 are blown. And the tech at Chrysler is like, oh no, you wouldn't know that. You don't know what 3 and 5 cylinder is. We don't publish it. And I'm like, okay, I got friends, but that's okay. You go ahead and do your thing. They ended up putting a short block in it. Kid takes it out on US 23 at M59 there, blows 3 and 5 cylinder again. Then they had to go warranty a long block. And I'm like, if you just listened to me the first time, I'm not that dumb. I mean, I had auto mechanics as a kid. And, my dad had tractors and all that kind of stuff. It's like, it's like common sense, But I really think there's I don't think it's like what's going on economically. It's like there's almost a knowledge gap like we're almost having with the boomers retiring. Too much knowledge leaving too fast.
Oh, let's talk about that. I know a company that was built in a guy's garage and he grew it to a multi-million-dollar a year company, and you're 100% right. Yeah. And the funny thing is, the leadership are so obtuse to what's going on. They're pushing these older people out.
Yeah.
They're like, if you don't like it, you don't like your attitude. You said he's stupid. You yell at him. Just quit. Now all the knowledge is walking out the door with these guys. Now, the smartest thing an old man ever told me, his name was Forrest Shook. He owned a company called NLB. He said, if you're going to replace one of your key players or he's going to retire, you need to get somebody to work with him for a minimum of 3 years, side by side. They should be Siamese twins. He should be bumping into the guy when he's stopping. I said, why? He says, because he's training him for free. You're already going to have the guys. When he walks out the door, all that knowledge is going to be retained in the guy behind him. And that's the way he did it. His whole.
That's funny. That's good.
That's smart.
Well, no, it's funny because it's like right now economically, you still got a little bit over 1 million baby boomers a year retiring. And that's probably going to go 2028 to 2032. But go into a Home Depot today, and it's like the young kid that's like 16 to 20 that's like ambitious, or the old guy or the older lady who's like in their late 60s, early 70s. If you want to get anything, get out of there in any reasonable amount of time, you either find the real young one or the older one. And those are, and probably preferably the older one. But it's like, hey, I need a ring for a toilet. What one would you get? Extra thick, aisle 4, aisle this, bay that, It's like, okay, that was easy. You would talk to one of the other kids and it's like they put their phone in front of their face just like this. Then they show you their phone at where it's at.
They
It's
can't
like,
even talk now. You don't notice that?
yeah, it's like pretty soon. It's like, ooh, them Tesla robots, man. Once Home Depot gets those,
I'm gonna have one. I already told my wife. I said, when
hopefully you can slide your credit card right there with it.
his ass crack. He swipe his ass crack. Why not?
Yeah.
But we talked about that the other day. I'm like, man, I'd get one of them robots
Yeah, those
to
are
do
funny.
menial tasks. I'm freaking over there folding clothes and putting clothes away
Yeah.
and sweeping the floor. Okay. Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to do this type of work. I mean, the kind of work that these robots are going to do, as much as I hate to say it, because nobody else wants to do it. If they want to do it, remember the old $10 an hour guys? They're now $30 an hour guys, and they don't know much more.
Well, you remember the movie Rocky? I think it was like Rocky 3, where Mick freaked out because the robot came carrying like the tray. I've almost wondered if like Hollywood knew what was coming like 30, 40 years ahead of time. Because it's like it kind of prepares you for it. It's like I see all these Tesla robots, and for some reason I'm thinking about Rocky movies or like that Will Smith movie, I, Robot.
Yeah, when the robot looks out.
Yeah. Or like the Terminator where they had all the robots and stuff like that. It's like, man, it's like that stuff is really happening.
It's really crazy because they have Grok, which is the AI for Elon Musk for X.
Yeah.
It's in my Cybertruck. I talk to it all the time. I ask it facts.
Yeah.
I was asking facts today about an API channel to hook the AI to our shop program, and I told it what shop program we use and stuff. To what kind of API, and he said, "Well, the only thing you might run into is cycles and da da da," and it knew everything all about it. Like I would have had to search for hours on YouTube or Google to do that. AI just has a conversation. I go, wait a second, it looked up the wrong shopware at first. Oh, and then I said, nope, wrong one. Shop. Then it did.
Well, look at how fast AI has got intelligence. You go back 3, 4 years. And it was like, oh, this is ridiculous. I was just talking to a customer. I don't want to name the supplier, but he works for one of the automotive supply companies down in Ann Arbor. And he was telling me, he's like, when AI first came out, let's go back to 2020, you'd be typing an email to somebody and it would always autofill the wrong stuff. Then 3 months later, it was better than what you could type. Then you'd be putting in like a code for like an OSHA standard or whatever he had to put in. It'd find it for you.
Yeah.
And it'd pre-fill it all out for you. Or like parts, it would know just based on what you were looking for and what you were working on. Or like if you're doing testing, like it would start to predict like what you needed and it was right. So like he said, he goes, just think about how fast it's gotten smart. And then just look at like AI when it first came out, everybody was making fun of it, right? Well, then all of a sudden, now it's like, hey, don't make fun of it. It's right. You're wrong.
Well, I had literally been writing private GPTs for people, like I told you, and I could actually write up, R&R Trio light on F650, and they'll say, "Oh, that's a DOT infraction if that light's not fixed." And here's the law. I have my GPT program. I went to a class and I programmed them to do different things. I take pictures of stuff now. It does estimates for me. It's crazy, and it's pretty much spot on.
Is it?
Yes, sir. It's nuts. It is absolutely nuts. Now I went to a class and it was 12 hours. I think I got another 12 hours to go. So I've been building these pretty badass GPTs. Like I have a P&L sheet, freaking shredder. I drop it last year's and this year's in and say, give me a summary, tell me what's happening and everything. They used to take me 3 hours to do with a calculator.
Yeah, well, my sister-in-law is a dentist, and she was telling me with like crowns and stuff, like impressions and stuff. Now the technology is so good. Now they can, just take X-rays and pop it out, and they're ready to put a crown on. They're not even doing the impressions or any of that. And even the 3D printing, I don't know, have you seen online the 3D printed crowns? And some of the 3D printed crowns, same day crowns. They got a 3D printer in the office, and bam, there you are. And, just 5, 6 years ago, they had to put fake temps on, and they had to do all that stuff. Now,
Jesus.
Yeah.
So let's break this down to with the slides we got going on back here. And let's go ahead and put some knowledge out here so some people get what they can understand what we're talking about.
Okay. So let's go back here. So for most small shops, let's talk shops.
Is that good?
25. Okay. Oh, perfect about that. So I pulled these off American Funds, which is also Capital Group. They're just pretty simple brochures. As we're going through the slide, if some of you guys want to like zoom in and screenshot on the very last slide, it'll show you the IRS data on what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. But for small businesses, most simple IRAs are best for, they say under 100 employees. I would say under 25. They're super simple, and there's the most important thing with the simple IRAs is they're for the business owner. significantly cheaper than a 401k. The one problem when you look at 401ks, you have to have a third party administrator. Let's just call that $1,500 minimum a year. You got the plan fee to set up. Let's call that $500 a quarter. And then your employees also have some type of a fee for their account. Where if you look at the simple IRA, you don't have the third party administrator as an employer. You don't have the cost to set it up. And on average, it's 15 to 25 bucks for the setup fee for the simple, and it's $15 to $25 a year on average. Some companies are a little higher, some companies are a little lower. The good thing about the simple IRA compared to just a regular traditional IRA, you got significantly higher contribution limits. And for your employees, the thing that the employees would like with a simple IRA over a 401k is you have immediate investing. So a lot of plans, if you look at a lot of big businesses, they'll say, hey, you got a 3-year grace period, so we're going to match you 6%, but every year we're only going to give you 2% if you leave the company. So if you work for a company for 3 years, yeah, you can walk with all the money. But if you work for a company for 2 years, you don't walk with all the money.
I have none.
So if you look at the simple IRAs, which Kevin has a simple, which is why he wanted me to come in and talk about this compared to 401k, is if his employees work for him for 1 year, they walk with everything he gave them as a contribution. The other thing is most simples, obviously at American Funds, they want to tell you that, yeah, you're going to use their funds. Okay, whatever, but you can use anything you want inside of them when it comes to that. There's no complex IRS forms. And then the one thing about American Funds Simple IRA that I like, if you're setting up a new plan, they have a Simple IRA Plus, which looks almost identical to a 401k. If you look at like the cell phone apps, how it works, and the different platform you have there. But the thing about the Simple Plus, you still have the lower cost of the Simple IRA. You don't have the cost of the 401. And the one thing a lot of people forget when you look over at 80% plus of all businesses in America are considered small business. Now, we all have our credentials on what's a small business or not. I like to tell everybody 8 out of 10 businesses are a small business, whether it's a kid pushing a lawnmower or it's a guy with 100 employees and less. 80% of the businesses out there are small businesses because a lot of people have a job, but you brought up Dave Ramsey earlier. They also have a job, but they also have a hobby business on the side. Like I got a friend down the road. The first time I met him, he's younger than me, but him and I talked about Dave Ramsey. His wife left work. Now she redoes furniture out of the garage. She makes more money refixing furniture and selling it than she would being a teacher. And then he has a job, but she's able to stay home, be with the kids. They don't have daycare expense, stuff like that. So technically, I mean, she's a small business, right? So that's the one good thing about Simple IRAs. She could set up a Simple IRA for herself and save the majority of that money for their retirement, or use it for their bills.
Okay, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Switch it over, Jay. I have a question. Is okay, the 401k. When I looked into it for our size business, it was just too expensive.
You're probably looking at all in $5,000 plus higher investment fees.
Right. That's kind of why I think so. That's why for smaller businesses, the simple IRA is a better way to go.
Yeah, and there's other plans. I mean, you got profit share plans, you got set plans. Problem with the set plan is if you put in 10%, you got to match 10 for all your employees. You put in 20%, you got to match 20 for all your employees. That can get to be a little bit expensive because your employees don't have to put anything into it at all. Right? Where the simple plan is kind of nice because, yes, you're putting in, but your employees are also putting in also. And then once we get to the last slide on this, when we're done replacing batteries on cameras, I can show you guys one of the things with the simple plan because they've really been modernizing the simple plan. 10 years ago, my uncle owned a dental office. All he had to do was basically tell his employees, hey, I have a simple plan. If they didn't want to do it, he didn't have to set one up for them.
Right.
Well, now they have it set up to where, a lot of employers are doing this. They just force all their employees into it, and then they just give them 2% of whatever their salary is, and then whether they put into it or not. That's one of the new things. So, can you go to page 4 of the slide? Go ahead. So, if you look here, come down to where it says employee contributions. So, and then after this, we'll get down to the plans with 25, 26 employees and more like that. So if you look at when it comes to the employer contributions, it's either a dollar for dollar match on contributions up to 3% of compensation, or what I see a lot of business owners doing now is the non-elective contribution of 2% of compensation. So basically, as soon as you have an employee that's been with you a year, you don't care. You're just, if they're making 100 grand, you're giving them 2 grand. If they want to put into it, then they can contact me or get on the cell phone app and start it up themselves. A lot of business owners, they don't allow a guy like me to spend as much time in their business as you do. A lot of guys are like, hey man, you got 10 minutes an employee. If they don't want to do it, just go on to the next one.
I don't understand that
some of
particular
them,
thing that I don't get.
I don't get it either. But I think a lot of them are like, hey, we have to get this stuff done now. I think at Garrett, I guess he'd be the younger guy that was a neighbor down the road last year. I think I was with him 45 minutes.
Yeah, I'm okay with that because sometimes I think that you need to sell it to them a little bit because that's your job, right? Obviously, you make money, but at the end of the day, you're setting that guy's life up. He might not even know what he wants. You just don't know what you don't know. So you show him some charts, some graphs, what you could have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and 22-year-old, I mean, if you look at a 22-year-old making 100 grand a year, if you get that guy putting in 12% and you're giving him 3, that's 15% of total comp. 10 years, that's 150,000. If he gets one double, he's got 300 grand at 32.
Yep.
I mean, and it's pretty basic math there. I mean, it's that's like a kid hitting a lotto ticket.
Lincoln started investing when he was 14.
Yeah.
I think he put $20,000 in when he was 14.
That's a good time to do it.
Yeah, and I think he just keeps going. He just keeps putting money. I'm like, dude, you're going to be a multimillionaire.
Yeah, I'd have to talk to him about this next time I see him. I mean, does he have a game plan to get out at 40?
Hell no, he's got to work till the day he dies. How do you think I'm going to walk over that pile of dead, broken bodies? Him and Jason standing there. No, he's right now getting groomed to run the shops with Jason and stuff like that, so he could be Jason's successor.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And then the other one too is with a lot of business owners will be like, hey, look, 2 or 3% of compensation is not a lot. I tell everybody, don't really look to get into this. If you want, you can bonus your guys and tell them, hey, I can give you a check. I hope you put it in your IRA or something like that. Because if you have a simple, you can still have a Roth or an IRA on the side.
After tax.
Yep. So stuff like that. Now, if you have plans of 25 or fewer employees, they tell you get an extra $1,100 that the owner can put in or the employees can put in, which is $17,600. You get the additional catch up of $38.50 over 50. Now, for plans with 26 or more, this is where the government's kind of being like, hey, yeah, you're a small business owner. It is cheaper. We're giving you a better deal to have a simple over a 401k. But the problem is if you're doing the lower contributions of compensation, they're only going to allow you guys to put in 16.5. Now, if you do this where it says employer matching contributions, 4% of compensation, or non-elective 3%, they allow you to do the 17.6. So you can still do that. And then there's this, so far for this year, they haven't fixed it. Kind of one of the reasons why the federal government shut down. They haven't fixed it for 2026 yet. But for people between the ages of 60 and 63, they're giving people a higher catch up. So this is something that a lot of people have been begging for a while. By the time you're 60, most likely your kids aren't in the house. House is paid for.
Not nowadays. Your kids are still living in your basement. What are you talking about?
Well, hopefully you're not paying for them.
You're doing that too.
Kevin, we got to keep this as rosy, You're skipping through daisies here. No. But no, for the most part, they're what they're hoping is employees 60 to 63 will be like, hey, look, I'm going to jam as much in as possible and then get out. And a lot of times people forget the federal government that you would say, well, why do they want you to put more money in later? With IRAs, you got required minimum distributions. You're going to have to take the money out. The more you got in, the more you have to take out. I tell everybody, rule of thumb, about 73, it's going to be somewhere right around 4% a year you got to take. Goes up every year. So the government knows they're going to get their money back. So that's why a lot of times now, it really started back in like 2002, 2003 under Bush, where he started giving people, if you're over 50, you could put more money in, right? Because back in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, most kids still got out of the house at 20, 25 years old. or 18 or whenever they left the house. So you had empty nesters. What are they going to do with their money, right? The more money that's in the economy, that helps with, investment for the economy to grow the economy. So it was kind of one of those things where, pro-growth presidents typically like to give people higher contributions when they're older so they can get more money into the market, which if the money's in the market, it goes into both stocks and bonds. Bonds are lending. So either the government now has more access to lending, or if you have a corporate bond fund, then it makes it cheaper for corporations to lend. So a lot of people will say, oh, if I put money in a corporate bond fund, it makes it cheaper for corporations. Yes, I mean, they're not going to see one person doing it. But when you got hundreds of millions of people doing it, that's a lot of money now that these corporations can go and say, hey, we're going to float these bonds or whatever, for lending to grow the economy or the business or whatever they're doing. Huh. So that's one of the things there. These plans are pretty simple to set up. Actually, the most time-consuming part is meeting with the employees and then also getting the fund company behind the scenes to actually set up the platform.
I imagine you as a financial advisor, you know which funds you like.
Yeah, I do know which funds I like. Like I said before, we'll keep this podcast pretty not talking about funds and investments. I can get into some of that stuff for a while. Like you've probably noticed this in my business, I don't charge like an additional advisory fee. I kind of think that's a little bit wrong. I like to tell customers, pay me less, spend, or have more. At the end of the day, I've been doing this since I was 19. I do pretty well.
Right, exactly.
It's what it is. I'd rather you give me a referral of one of your employees than try to just make all my money off one or two customers. The question comes down to, there's a huge difference in compound interest between someone making, 8% and 9.5%. Over 30 years, that's, 30 to 40% more money. So if you look at how much money that advisory fee costs someone, it's like we talked about earlier. Like if you have good employees and you get them ready and one of them's here to take the business over for you, the money comes back to you. If a client, if you knew them for 30 years and they got 3 million, not 2 million, they're better off and you're going to be better off. I mean, it is what it is. At the end of the day, is it worth trying to nickel and dime somebody? Probably not. It's going to catch up to you.
So let's go back to the old, what's going to happen when these boomers start passing away, start retiring? Because we talked about they're starting retiring, right? Now they're passing away. Now their wealth is getting dropped down to a generation who might not be as savvy with the money.
Well, so I'll put it to you this way. If the average boomer still has 1 million retirees a year right now, 2030 is where I see, whether it be hiccups in the economy or just a change in the economy, how it works. Boomers are very structured people. They had very military parents. They were up at 7, they went to work at 8, they got home at 4:30, dinner was on the table at 5. Right? I mean, a lot of older millennials and Gen Xers probably remember their household set up like that.
So let's talk about really quick. Okay, let's talk about assets, because when we are talking about boomers, they have we'll just say Michigan boomers. They have the house down here. Chances are it's paid for downstate. Then they have a place up north that's
they got a cabin.
They have a cabin. That's just standard issue white boy stuff here in Michigan, right?
Yeah, because you both got them.
Right. So that's kind of what we aspire to do. So what's going to happen when these young kids get this money and they really don't know how to deal with it? They're going to start dumping all this stuff because they're going to want the money, right?
You're already... So my parents, I grew up on the border of Clarkson and Ortonville, right across the street was Ortonville, Clarkson, whatever. My parents sold the house. They moved to Florida, right? Now, instead of my parents having a place here, I got 3 brothers. I think my parents spent probably 6 weeks with me this summer. They probably spent 3 weeks with my brother, bounced around a little bit, and then, boom, they're back to Florida. And then my dad comes back for hunting season and the holidays. My mom and dad do. Not just my dad, but my mom and dad do. Question then comes down to, you look at the parents or the people that have the small cabin up north, the house here, the house in Florida. What I see some of the Florida houses is, because my dad golfs with a lot of them, they'll have a cabin, a house, the house in Florida, but they got a mortgage on one of them, and that's the piggy bank. So now all of a sudden interest rates are higher, stuff's going on. A lot of these people are selling one of them off already. So a lot of the boomers are already selling one off. So if you look at northern Michigan prices of real estate and you look at Florida prices of real estate, depending where you're at, you're starting to see some softening in the market. And a lot of people say, oh, well, if the prices are going down, a lot of people must be selling it. No, that doesn't necessarily happen, because back in 2008 with the financial crisis, there wasn't a lot of people selling a lot of that bad investment products. Nobody bought it.
Nobody's buying.
That's the
If
problem.
everybody's broke.
Or nobody knows what it is. Nobody's buying it.
Yeah.
So if nobody's buying it, where's your price? And the same thing people forget happened during COVID. That's why the Federal Reserve had to step in and start buying some bonds, because there was like a 2-week-long period during COVID where it was like we had no prices on some assets. You know what I mean? So like people were like, well, what's it really worth? So then
Everything just stopped.
Yeah, everything stopped. So the Fed comes in and, they injected that money, and then they ended up pulling it back. It wasn't really a big issue at the time, and it happened so fast people probably forget about it. But you're starting to see a little bit of softening in real estate. Like there's a guy across the hall from me in my office. He owns a like a tier 3 supply company, does metals and fixtures and stuff like that for the auto industry. And he just keeps his business office there, and so he's not around the shop. He just, he lets his foreman run the shop, and then him and another guy do all the business work outside of the area. And he had a friend that bought down in Marco Island, and he said, man, if my buddy would have waited 3 months, he could have got it for $200,000 less. Right. And a lot of the problems is, and I shouldn't just say Florida, because Florida has the hurricane problem where it's hard to get insurance on a house down
Insurance, they're
there.
canceling people's insurance and not even insuring them.
Yeah. So like my mom and dad, like my dad said Florida was once cheap. But now if you look at it, Michigan's actually becoming a cheaper retirement state than Florida, because my dad's in Hudson, north of Tampa, 45 minutes, $6,000 a year for homeowners insurance.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow. And I'm over here crying like a little bitch over $1,400.
$1,285. My wife's like, who's paying that bill? No.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like, holy shit. Yeah, I've heard that though.
Yeah.
We were looking to buy a place in Florida, and we talked to some my old insurance people. They've had places in Florida. They said the mortgage isn't the problem in Florida. It's your homeowner's insurance and it's your taxes.
Yeah.
Now I know DeSantis is doing something about the taxes, but they said basically right now though, between the taxes and the homeowners, it's usually double your mortgage.
Yeah. I was like the kid in my sub that was saying, they got $125,000 mortgage, and they had to build a new school in Holly. Right. They, prices of houses go up, so they inflate your bill a little bit. Then all of a sudden you're paying more money in property tax and insurance than you are your mortgage.
Nobody talks about this aspect of taxes. Me being a small business owner here in Brighton, you know how much I gave to the Brighton High School? Like $12,000 in taxes. I think it was what I tell you? $12,000. Yeah. Just so I could help the school out, so they could have that badass field house and stuff like that. Yeah. I don't mind paying my share, but I mind giving them all my money. Yeah. And then when they go and do a millage, it affects the businesses.
Well, it's one of the reasons why my parents left Ortonville. It's like my mom said when I was a kid, it was a country town. Well, then all of a sudden they build a football stadium that if you were a kid, you'd be like, my God, I'd love to play here. Right. And then you got all these schools, and my elementary school, Bell Ann, sits on Glass Road. They sold that off. Brandon Fletcher Intermediate, where they put the Ortonville Library, sitting vacant, right? So you have all these schools that are just sitting vacant. And it's like, well, wait a second. Why are we building new ones now? Like,
progress is a nasty thing.
Yeah. Well,
somebody's got to pay the bill.
Well,
for progress.
The one thing, I think as a business owner, this, you have probably less waste than somebody who, they pass a millage and you get $60 million bond offer, and it's not your money.
Right.
I mean, I think even Bernie Sanders Democrats or whatever would be like, yeah, that's probably pretty true.
No, I would agree.
I think both, that's something that both sides of the aisle would be like, yeah, there's a reason we need auditors in government.
Was this proven by Doge?
Yeah. I still don't understand what USAID did. It looked like a money racket to Travis. Common sense would be like,
Yeah, that's a pivot table of dollars and funds. Yeah. I like the story, not to get the guy just started billing them. Just learned how to bill them. They're sending them $30,000, $40,000 at a time.
Yeah.
Till he got caught. Only reason he got caught is because of Doge. How long did he do that?
But what was the difference? What did Kwame Kilpatrick go to jail for if we had Doge?
Yeah.
The same thing's going on.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, yeah, I mean, 6 of one, half dozen of another. It's like you really wonder. And then the one that's shocking to me is like the girl down the road from me is a teacher. And I was talking to her. I'm like, oh, you probably hate Linda McMahon for shutting down the Department of Education. She's like, I think in the state of Michigan, it's only like 6% of our money goes to the schools, K through 12. But I think the Department of Education, you're running, what, $312 billion budget, 320, something like that, billion?
Yeah.
So if you look at actually the Department of Education, what's actually happened to the Department of Education, which I kind of agree with Linda McMahon about this, you have, I mean, $1 trillion worth of student loans. That's all through the Department of Education. So is the Department of Education Department of Lending or Department of Education? Which one is it? Like, why don't you move that over to like the Small Business Administration, right? And get people that actually do lending for a living. They can now go to these students and say, hey, look, you took the money, you got to pay for it. But let's figure out how to pay for this.
Most people don't realize that's the number one moneymaker for the United States government is student loans. Okay, they talk about that. It might be number two now that we got the taxes even raised higher, but they talk about it. It was really eye-opening to me when we're getting these loans and your kid's not 25, so they're like, yo, you have to co-sign for a loan. Even as a parent, you're co-signing. So they put you on the hook. Then you go to the college and they're like, in the orientation, you're like, yeah, we're not going to tell you your kid's grades. And I remember standing up and go, well, wait a second here. I'm the guy writing the check. Where's the piece of paper that I can sign? Because I'm seeing her grades. If I'm paying, she's doing it. And then we realize that they say, okay, your tuition, we'll just say is $10,000 for the semester. We'll go ahead and give you 16 or 17. Yeah. So the school they mail the 16 or 17 to the college. The college takes their 10 and gives the kids a 6,000. Go get yourself some pizzas and some beers.
Yeah.
Well, what a freaking racket.
Well, you know, don't get me wrong. I'm not the biggest Gretchen fan in the world, but I give Gretchen credit for this. Like, she really promoted juniors and seniors not waste time taking, you know, high school algebra. Go to local community college. Take algebra at the college. You know, or, you know, you can now, there's some, like I know at Macomb Community College, I think you can get a bachelor's in nursing now at a community college, which it was just a simple regulation change. It was like one sentence in a bill. And it's like, well, wait a second. Why do we have to fund these huge colleges and universities? Because when you get your taxes in Oakland County, look at the money you're giving to Oakland Community College. I mean, there's just one right down the road from here. And it's like, wait a second here. Why do we have to have all these little state schools that we're funding when every county basically has a community college? Why can't you just, you know, if you look at the basic degrees in society, I mean, nursing is like probably one of the most basic things we need, right? Or even like accountants, right? Like, if you're really that good of an accountant, it doesn't matter where you get your degree at. Walsh will take you for a master's. And if you're that good of an accountant, your employer will probably pay for it.
Well, this brings up our last topic. Then we're going to wrap this up because this will have to be part 1, part 2, and part 3, and 4, and 5 because I like this conversation because this is stuff that people don't honestly take into consideration.
We might have to get a new podcast, Bullshit with Kevin and Travis.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. But here's another thing. You work your whole life. You pay off your house. You live in Ortonville. You've paid off your house. All of a sudden, progress starts happening. Your taxes keep going. Yeah. You were on a fixed income, and all of a sudden you get your bill, your tax bill. It went up $300 because they passed the millage.
$300. Okay. My parents left because it was like $3,000.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
perfect
They're like,
example.
We're selling this thing. Yeah.
So there you go. So you're on a fixed budget, and all of a sudden your freaking tax bill goes up $3,000 for the year. You can't even afford to live, so you have to sell your house and move into a freaking apartment.
Well, the other thing that people don't talk about, like if you live semi-rural or you're not in a subdivision or a city, like you might have a driveway that's 150 yards long. You got to plow that.
Yeah.
Okay. You might have 4 acres that needs to be groomed or your neighbors are all screaming at you. So now you got to have tractors and equipment. Then you got to have a pole barn that you got to maintain. All that stuff has maintenance. You all got fixed cost. There's a customer of mine. He's retired now, but he worked for a collision shop. And it was like he probably had 5 guys in the space the size of this podcast room. His office was kind of in the corner. It was all glass. You could see what he was doing. And then all the guys were just stacked around him. And then they looked out over a huge shop floor that was like the size of a football field. I'm sitting in the office and I'm like, this is a cool setup. I said, you guys aren't wasting any space here. He said, offices don't make money. He goes, and I got to see that shop floor. I want that thing full. He goes, my job's to make profit. And I thought that was a pretty cool way of looking at it because like he said, everybody, everybody wants the big house, pole barns, garages, all that stuff. You don't realize the fixed costs of that. And even in a business like a body shop, mechanic shop like yours, I think I have to go upstairs in Garrett Auto. That's where I meet the guys is upstairs, right? Because you got the shop floor full, and then there's a place upstairs where
Look
the
at
guys
this
have
building.
lunch
I have
and
a
stuff.
podcast studio one here.
Yeah.
I have a trailer part store here in the other part. I rent the other part out, the other 2 acres.
Don't waste space.
And I don't waste space. I just don't. If it's not making money, I just, the only place that's wasted up here is the upstairs, and this is the way the mezzanine's set up here.
Oh, is it?
But I could put overflow trailer parts up there now.
Yeah. Well, it's just funny. You look at a lot of businesses and how, because I've walked in a lot, and you're now going out doing consulting. You're walking in businesses. The brother-in-law has a camper parked there. I mean, everybody got a brother-in-law.
Place smells like cat piss, and the dog greets you at the door. Not everybody likes dogs. I try to tell people that. Not everybody likes cats. They're great at your house, not in your business.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's funny because that's one right now that a lot of people are getting worked up, like the service dogs. Like a lot of people have a service dog. I don't know why. I don't know what. I don't get. It's just a dog, right? Like, what's it? You don't.
And
know
it's
if
actually a
service dog
federal
or not.
offense. They put all these bullshit collars on it as a service dog. The dog's not a service dog. Okay.
If it wasn't in the military, it wasn't a service dog. That's
right.
how I look at it.
Then a lot of these service dogs, yeah, exactly. Well, a lot of these dogs, you could tell a service dog if you ever run around them, they do not pay attention to anything. Yeah. Okay. These people walk around with these dogs and they're looking and they're wagging the tail. They're not a service dog. They're not trained, because the first thing you train a service dog is you pay attention to your freaking owner's vibes. Okay. These people don't. Yeah. So they what do they call them? Emotional support dog. Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you a funny story, and then we're gonna wrap it up. We're in Georgia Airport. Me and Marilyn are sitting there at the bar having a drink, waiting for a connecting flight. Here comes this lady, comes off a flight with this like pit bull looking thing. It takes a shit in the floor before she could actually stop to tell him a guy what.
I can see the look on Marilyn's face right now. That'd be hilarious.
So we're sitting there, and the guy is not paying attention on his phone, walks right into the pile and slips and wipes out. I go, oh my God, last place you thought you'd run into dog shit is the airport. Oh, man. He gets up, it's all over his leg. Could you imagine how pissed you'd be? And that lady's like, oh, I'm sorry, this is my support dog. That dog wasn't a support dog. There's your freaking dog Benji. You were taking for a walk.
Oh, I bet you Marilyn had a good laugh on that one.
Oh yeah, my wife. She's like, you need to shut up, you're embarrassing me. I'm like,
oh no, I could see Marilyn tucking in and just having I could see her laughing for weeks on that one. That would be hilarious. I could see that. Yeah. I think both of us are very lucky when it comes to life and wives.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this is awesome. This is great conversation. I think that part 2. What is part 2 going to be on when you come back on it?
Yep. I kind of have to script it and get it pre-approved through LPL, but I want to do one where we talk about all the different Act 40 products, where it's mutual funds, ETFs, closed-end funds, unit investment trusts, all that. I do kind of want to touch on variable annuities and insurance. That might have to be a completely different podcast. I don't know if I get that much content approved at once. But then I also want to talk to people about the difference between how brokers manage accounts. So there's 2 real big styles of management. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm an RIA, registered investment advisor. Well, I'm a registered investment advisor and a broker. One thing, a takeaway people can take from this podcast is, if you're a broker, you have to be licensed, fully licensed. So I'm Series 6, Series 7, 63, and 65. A lot of RIAs don't even got to be licensed. Some of them are now going back and getting what they call Series 65, and that's about it. So sometimes you got to look. A lot of people will say, oh, well, we're a fiduciary. Well, in today's standards, we're all fiduciaries. We all have laws and regulations we have to go by. And then the other thing is, if you ever meet a financial professional that says the word guaranteed, run.
Yeah.
That might be how you want to close
the whole life insurance.
Yeah.
That says it all. Whole. Yeah. You might throw your money all whole.
Yeah. It'd be like a mechanic saying it'll last forever.
Yeah. Amen. Just go get it off Amazon. It'll be fine. We don't mind if you bring your own parts. We've said that several times on our podcast. All right, Travis, thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
You.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.